Just a brief introduction of who I am. I know obviously a number of you know me, but new folks don't know who I am. My name is Mordy Levine. I am the co-author of the book, Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners. I'm also the president of Lama Lhanang Center, which is a Buddhist center located in San Diego, but we have students all over the world. And more importantly, is the spiritual leader of our group of that center is Lama Lhanang Rinpoche. He is a Tibetan Lama, a high Tibetan Lama, and he will join us on our sixth class. Anyways, that's about me. Number two is if you have questions or want to interrupt me, feel free to do so. You can do it one of two ways. You can raise your hand, click on raise hand, or you could just take yourself off mute, and that's okay, and just interrupt me with your question. No problem whatsoever. Okay. Hi Rose, how are you? Welcome. Okay, so I'd like to start by giving everyone a quiz, just to make sure you're paying attention. Who wrote the original version of the Tibetan Book of the Dead? Who wrote the original version of the Tibetan Book of the Dead? Anyone want to guess? Feel free.
Can we cheat?
You absolutely can cheat. Cheating is absolutely allowed. Okay.
It's not Padmasambhava,
Yeah. Okay. Well, it
is it?
is.
Ah!
Yeah. A gentleman by the name
Okay, I
of
got it.
There you
Yay!
go. Send you a check, $500 in cash. Padmasambhava, another name that he went by was Guru Rinpoche. Padmasambhava was a legendary 8th century Buddhist master, played a major role in bringing Buddhism to Tibet. He's considered a second Buddha. He's considered a second Buddha, even though numerous Buddhas have been landed on this earth the last few hundred years. Um, the first Buddha that we all know of lived 2,600 years ago, Shakyamuni Buddha, and then this Buddhist master came along in the 700s. His name is Padma Sambhava, which literally means lotus born, because traditionally said to have been born miraculously from a lotus in a lake. And the way he came onto the scene was there was a king of Tibet at the time, King Trisong Detsen. He was trying to build a monastery, a Buddhist monastery called Samye Monastery, which is still in Tibet today. And he was having a lot of problems because what they noticed was that every time they build a portion of the monastery, they'd come back the next morning and it was destroyed. And it happened over and over again. One of the Buddhist masters, Santarakshita, said, we really need to find someone that can handle and take care of these local spirits that are preventing Buddhism to flourish. So they called, who'd they call? Who do you call? So they called Padmasambhava from India to come, and he was known as a tantric specialist, someone who fixes problems exactly like this. And he's also associated with many of the most important teachings we know today. So he came to subdue these disruptive forces and perform rituals to stabilize the land, and in addition to integrate those local spirits that were misbehaving and didn't want Buddhism to flourish. So he integrated them into Buddhism, and he enabled construction, which was completed in 767. And he was key in spreading tantric teachings. Another word for tantric is Vajrayana teachings, and creating Vajrayana Buddhism. Tantra, we all probably have different views of understandings of what that is, but basically it's using special rituals, meditation techniques, symbolic practices, visualizations, mantras, sounds, guided by an empowered teacher to help you transform your spiritual growth with everyday experiences. That is, in essence, is Tantra. And now I'm going to show you a few pictures that we have of. So this is how, this is a tanka of Padmasambhava. And here we have a ritual statue ornament. And they're all the same we'll get into won't talk so much about what each of the garments means and what the pose means and things like that. But this is how the Tibetans look at him. And if you go into each different culture, they might have a slightly different version of how they think that he looks. Because he lived in the 700s, but they weren't, no cameras, et cetera, at that time. So, founding figure of the oldest school of Tibetan Buddhism. Tibetan Buddhism has four schools in it, and this was the oldest school that he founded called Nyingma. He's the author and originator of many hidden teachings. They're called termas. So he would give a teaching or write it down to one of his consort, or speak it to one of his consorts who would write it down, and then they would hide some of those teachings in caves, in sacred sites, or they would embed it into the future mind of Buddhist lamas that came hundreds of years later. So there were these sacred teachings that weren't ready to be revealed yet. They would be revealed at some point in the future. So that's how he made that happen when the world or the universe or Buddhists were ready for it, by either hiding them physically, or by uh, embedding it in students to come, in Buddhist masters that were coming. So, what is the Tibetan Book of the Dead? What is the Tibetan Book of the Dead? Anyone know what that means? It's called let me rephrase that. In Tibetan, it's called Bardo Todal. Bardo Todal. Does anyone know what those two words mean? And I'll show you how we spell it as well. Here it is. Bardo Todal. Well, I'll tell you right there. Liberation through hearing in the intermediate state. So Bardo means intermediate state or afterlife, literally means gap or pause. And Todol means liberation through hearing. Tos, Thos, and Dol. Dol is a contraction that comes together, liberation through hearing. So, and this was something that he wrote in the 700s, which wasn't revealed until the 1400s by someone named Karma Lingpa, another great master. So my question is, what's this deal about liberation through hearing? Because, especially when you're dead, you don't hear very much. Anyone want to guess on what that means? Or anyone know what that means? Liberation through hearing. Why through hearing?
The only thing I know is hearing is the last sense that you lose right before you die. So, or when you're, say you're in an unconscious state of some sort or a coma, it's said that you can often still hear. So you can still take in information and
That's
process it.
true. But if this is to be read, the whole idea behind the Bardo Todal is it's a guide meant to be read to the dying or recently deceased to help them navigate the afterlife, help them navigate the Bardo. So this is being read by Buddhist lamas, Buddhist teachers, or colleagues or family to someone who's already dead. So, so the hearing's gone. You're right. The hearing is the last sense to leave, and someone's unconscious. They can hear you physically. But in this case, people are dead already. So, what's going on? How does the deceased hear if they have no physical body? Okay. Well, it really refers to direct mental perception. The consciousness can't depend on a physical brain, ears, or nervous system. Hearing doesn't mean sound waves hitting the eardrums in this case. It refers to direct mental perception, awareness that is not limited by the senses. It's kind of a telepathic or intuitive knowing. So the Bardo being, we'll get into it a little bit deeper, has a subtle, very subtle consciousness which can perceive thoughts, intentions, and prayers directly. Um, so rituals, chants, and various words that are spoken by the living are believed to reach the deceased as mental impressions. Now, for those of us that have doubts about this, I would highly recommend that you go to YouTube and watch some videos on people who have experienced near-death experiences, because many of those people who are physically dead, no brain waves, no heart, nothing going on, that magically come back to life hours, sometimes days later, recount stories and things that they saw taking place, let's say, outside of the operating room by doctors, nurses, and administrators. So clearly there's no hearing going on. There's some other way to communicate, and this is a very similar situation. So when monks or loved ones speak to the dead, the consciousness doesn't hear with ears; it recognizes meanings directly. So he created these teachings, but instead of writing them down or publishing them, he hid them as spiritual treasures. The word is terma, Terma. And I'm going to show you what that looks like as well. So you can see since that time, which is they were discovered in the 1400s by a gentleman named Karma Lingpa, a great Buddhist master. Since then, he and his students have written those teachings down, and they kept, there's no Xerox machine copy or whatever, so they've been handwritten over and over and over again. Some of these that you're looking at are actually from the 1700s, and they're now stored in various monasteries in Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan, as well as in museums. So here's one that's in museum. That's one of the museum curators. Um, so these copies of those initial teachings from the 700s are here, and you can look at them. A lot of them have been, of course, digitized. Some of them are not in great condition. So bottom line is the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or Bardo Todal, is a collection of ritual texts and instructions meant to guide someone, to guide their mind through death and what comes after. It's traditionally read aloud, someone who's dying or just died. Um, and then what the person who died now goes through the bardo. Afterlife is a common word that's used to describe it. And there's three bardos that have been categorized or identified in these teachings from the 700s, as well as experienced by great Buddhist masters since then. The first bardo is called the bardo of dying. There's three main bardos in the afterlife. First one's called bardo of dying. The instant of death is when that starts. At that moment, the mind encounters its purest form, a very clear, brilliant white light. And that white light is described as the true nature of reality. Some people call it the clear light. Some people call it pure awareness.
Mordy, we lost your audio. Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
You said
Yeah.
something about
So,
pure light and awareness, and then you were gone.
yeah. So that white light is called the pure light or clear light or pure awareness. For ordinary people that see that light, they don't recognize it. I'll tell you what that means in a moment. They may see it, but they don't recognize it. And it might be too vast, too intense for them. So what the expression is that they will faint. They won't remember it. They don't notice it. They notice it, but they don't recognize it. And I'll define that word in a moment. So the consciousness faints and moves on to the second bardo, which has a lot of visions and lights and like a dream phase. Talk about that in a moment. So light is present, but it's missed or unrecognized, the clear light. If an individual consciousness moving through the bardo recognizes it, they become liberated at that moment. They don't have to go through any rebirth. So great beings that are realized practitioners that have a very, very strong practice, not just in meditation, but in a variety of teachings and a variety of visualizations, then when that bright light happens, when they die, they have the opportunity to become liberated and not have to experience rebirth. Most people do not have that recognition. An analogy is a mirror that reflects everything. A realized person recognizes that the mirror is just a mirror. An ordinary person gets caught up in the reflections in the mirror and thinks them as real. So without that recognition, we are stuck in illusion and we go on to the second bardo, the second phase. 99.999% of people do not recognize that clear light. But that's what many great practitioners practice, is to be able to recognize it. The second stage, the second bardo, is called the bardo of luminosity, and that's where the consciousness experiences peaceful and wrathful deities. So if you're not a practitioner, it's like experiencing a bad dream or a nightmare, and you get caught up in it, and everything you're looking at appears as real, just like when you're dreaming at night. Most of us, when we dream at night, we take that dream as reality. That's what it feels like. So the bardo is often described as a kind of heightened dreamlike state. And if you're an experienced practitioner, then you recognize that it's just a dream and you don't get too worked up about it. Most of us, if we have a nightmare, we want to, we want to get out of it. We want to, or we fight, or we run, or whatever we need to, whatever we do, because we accept it as real. So we have these visions and we look at these deities, and we have, in some cases, a nightmarish type of experience. My question is, what do people do or experience if A, you don't believe in deities, or B, you're from another culture? What happens then? What's your experience like?
Okay, I'm going to jump in here. So when the books that I've read are, I think they've all been Americans experiencing this. So say they're what you mentioned in surgery, or they're in a hospital, they leave their body, they're floating above, they can see everything going on, but they tend to see a white light and get drawn into a tunnel. Is this what you were asking?
No, what I
What
was
the
asking is
experience is if
what
you're
is the experience like in the second stage of the bardo, where we are experiencing deities, visions, dreamlike state?
okay, so if you're
That
not from that culture, if you're not from
if you're
that
not from
culture,
that, yeah, what
it
deities? I
appears to
mean,
be just a light. Although maybe that's phase one.
yeah,
But
that's phase
they
one.
go into the light. So that's all I've heard of from our culture. I haven't heard anything else from our culture.
Right. So in stage one, the way the Buddhists teach it is there's a bright light, very, very bright, very intense. And if you recognize it, you're liberated. If you don't recognize it, you go to stage two. Stage two is a series which can take days and weeks, is a series of dream-like deities, can be nightmarish, can have a lot of visions and sounds to it. That's the stage that we're talking about. So my question is, well, what if I've never seen a deity before? I have some tankas here, so I kind of know what deities look like, but I don't dream about them. I don't think about them. I may not recognize them, even though I might do some visualizations. So what is the Westerner or people that don't know what deities are? What are they experiencing during that second phase? That was the question. And the answer is that uh, our minds dream aspects of our own Western culture. What we're really looking at here is we're experiencing the aspects of our own consciousness or our own. So if you are dreaming at night and you recognize that you're dreaming, you recognize that dreaming is a mind generated environment, then you recognize that that's just an illusion. You don't get all hyped up about it. In fact, you can just say, I don't want to live in this dream. I'd experience this dream. I'll go dream something else. You just change channel because you know that's just an illusion. But if you don't recognize it as a dream or as an illusion and you take it as it's real, then you get all hyped up about it and you get triggered and you get reactive. So basically experiencing aspects of your own consciousness. So if you're from the Western culture, then you're going to be experiencing whatever is your own consciousness at that point. So how does this apply to all beings, different cultures, that kind of thing? Well, all cultures, the content of the dreams of my culture and experience, my mind, is going to be different than yours. So we all have different content, but the fact that we're dreaming is universal. So when you enter into the second bardo, everyone goes through it. And if you look at some other religions, they have different words to describe what's happening. But the question is not just, well, I don't recognize deities, but I recognize that and I don't get all hyped up about it. It's whether or not you recognize that dreams or the bardo is an illusion. That's the key. And because we don't have a physical body at that point, and we do get reactive and we do get triggered and we do get angry, we get irritated, annoyed, or fearful, that's what your consciousness will take with it into your rebirth. And you will less likely to have an auspicious rebirth if your consciousness has anger, annoyance, irritation, attachments tied to it. That's kind of the key point here, regardless of what culture you're from. And then stage 3 of the bardo is the bardo of becoming. So if liberation hasn't happened, the consciousness has momentum and attachment to it, to a physical body, and seeks rebirth. And you can have an unfavorable rebirth, which can refer to different types of families, environments, countries, cities, as well as other realms like reborn as an animal, that kind of thing. But ultimately, rebirth occurs based on karma and your mental tendencies. And at that point of rebirth, that's where you have an opportunity to be reborn in the Pure Land or into a physical body, which is once again where 99.9% of people are reborn. So these teachings that he laid out the map for us draws heavily from Tantric Vajrayana Buddhism, because we have practices that are associated with these teachings that have to do with visualization, deity, yoga, and ultimately recognition of the mind's true nature. So the Tibetan Book of the Dead is about all these practices that one can do during this lifetime to live a better life and simultaneously prepare for death, so that you can, or to prepare others for death, so that you do not have an unfavorable rebirth. And it's all about recognizing the true nature of your mind, recognizing what's an illusion and what's real. And death is seen as a unique opportunity for enlightenment. The visions that I just talked about are the mind's psychological and spiritual process. And the Bardo Todol, or the Tibetan Book of the Dead, functions as a manual for navigating the consciousness under these conditions. So, for those of us who have a meditation practice, some of us can stop thought when we meditate, have no thoughts, go into a deep meditation without any thoughts. But recognizing the clear light is different than that. And I remember, Rose, you had asked a question about that a couple of months ago. So recognizing the clear light is really a much more vivid, awake, luminous awareness where you recognize your own awareness as part of the greater pure clear light awareness. That recognition is called recognizing the clear light, is different than having a very deep meditation without any thoughts. So a common analogy there is no thought meditation is like looking at an empty sky with no clouds, no thoughts. But a clear light recognition is realizing the nature of the sky itself, that it's open, that it's empty, that it's all knowing. That's the difference between a deep meditation with no thought versus a clear light experience. Okay, I'm about to change gears a little bit. Before I do, went through a lot of information, some of it I'm sure new. And any thoughts, comments, or questions on anything that I've talked about? Feel free. Now's a good chance.
I have a question.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. So when I was reading your book, and when I heard other people too, there's an idea of your state of mind when you're passing, right as you're passing, may affect your experience going through the bardo. And I'm just curious about how that happens. I mean, what phase of the three bardos is that affect, or does it
All of them.
affect all?
Okay, let's say um, walking down the street, someone bumps into me. I'm looking at my phone. Someone bumps into me, and my phone falls. And I say, well, "Hey, you! What do you do that for? Why?" I get angry. I don't have to speak. I get angry, annoyed, irritated at that moment. Let's agree that in the very next moment, I'm likely to be annoyed and irritated. It's not like I get annoyed and irritated, then it's gone. I'm a happy guy. Hey, no problem. Right? There's a continuance to it. So two things have happened. One is I have allowed myself to be triggered and react. And the second thing that happens is I've reacted in such a way that it's now going to continue the next few moments. In fact, for some people, that negative reaction can last minutes, days, or hours. And I'm sure many of us know people that walk around very easy to react, very reactive, very dramatic. So if that's the kind of life that I lead, where I'm easy to be reactive, easy to anger, easy to annoyance, easy to irritate, whatever it is, or fearful, very quick to be anxious, then when I die or when I'm lying in bed, that operating system, that's in place. Just because I don't feel well one day and I'm about to die doesn't automatically change my operating system. My habits have been established and ingrained until the moment I die. Now, what goes into the bardo? The only thing that goes into the bardo, which I'll get into in a little more detail, is a type of consciousness where those reactions, those habits, those tendencies are stored. Not really stored, but that's the word they use, reside. They go along with. It's kind of like a river flowing, and maybe you drop some dye in the river. The dye is not part of the river. It's there and it goes along for a ride until it's no longer there. So the same thing here. So that consciousness, that's the only thing we take in the bardo. You don't take your money, you don't take your clothing, you don't take your physical this, your physical ton. So your karma, another word for habits, is what you go with. And that will help to determine your experience in that second bardo that we talked about. And that will help determine your rebirth. So if you're an angry guy or an angry gal or what have you, or easy to trigger, or whatever your habits are, we'll talk more about that in a few minutes, then that is going to be a large determination of the kind of family, the kind of environment, the country, the city, the mother, the father. So if you're not going to be reborn, as one of a great lama's son or daughter, because they don't have that kind of anger reactiveness in their household. You're going to reborn. I mean, I don't want to, well, we use examples from politics, but we'll keep that out for now. But if you want to see how and why a certain child is a certain way, you look at the parents. You want to use the word genetics, whatever words you want to use, but from a Buddhist perspective, that's how that plays out. And if you are a practitioner and you're a meditator and you can see what's an illusion that someone just banged into you, not a big deal, pick up my phone and go about my day. Or when someone yells at me or someone triggers me, not a problem. That's their problem, not mine. Then when it is time for the bardo, you will not be seeing or be triggered by any of those dreamlike experiences. You just won't, because you'll recognize what it's for, what it's there, which is just as an illusion. And then that will impact greatly not only your experience in the bardo, but also your rebirth. Does that answer your question? Okay. Any other questions on any of that? Okay, so I'm going to change gears a little bit and I'm going to talk about karma. So, and that's I think the first chapter in the book is about karma, pretty sure. So why do you think that's the first topic in our book? Why we could have started lots of other places. We could have talked about the Four Noble Truths, suffering, death, compassion, impermanence, renunciation. So many things in Buddhism, so many aspects and teachings in Buddhism, but we chose karma. Anyone want to guesstimate why we chose karma?
Can I speak? Because I'm actually,
Yes, of
I
course.
can't put my screen on. I would say it's karma is what we create, and I would say that that's what we actually take when we die. So I would think that's the reason why it's first.
Absolutely. So that's one of the many reasons. So that's the primary reason. It's the only thing we take with us into the bardo when we die. It's also the only thing that will determine our experience, our experience in the bardo. That determines our experience in the bardo. It will determine our rebirth or whether we become enlightened. And here's the part that I like. It's the only thing we can control now and in the future. That to me is the most powerful statement of all, is our karma. So what does karma mean? Karma means action, literally means action. What kind of action? It means action of body, actively, physically moving, speech, talking, and mind, your thoughts, with intention. The degree of intention is very important. So if you are driving down the road and you run over an ant and you don't see it, you don't intend to, then the karma associated with killing that ant is very, 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 very light, if at all. As opposed to someone who's got strong intention, they want to get a gun and they go and they enact some heinous act. There is full intention, full recognition, so the karma would be very, very heavy. So what are the consequences of those actions? Keep it simple. There's three basic consequences whenever we say, do, or speak anything with intention is we are likely to do it again. We're likely to find ourselves in an environment where that behavior is common, and we're likely to be the recipient of that type of action. So if I am a generous person, every time I see a homeless person, I give them $5. Well, I'm more likely to do it again. I'm more likely to find myself in an environment of generosity, and I'm more likely to have someone be generous with me. Let's say I'm an angry person. Let's say I'm an abusive husband. Well, I'm more likely to be abusive again. I'm more likely to find myself in an abusive environment and more likely for someone to be abusive to me. So in a very simple nutshell, that is the consequences of karma. And I have two quotes here about that from the Dhammapada, which is attributed to the Buddha. Karma follows you like a faithful shadow, requiring mindfulness in thoughts and actions because you cannot outrun your own deeds. Okay? Second quote, I am the owner of my actions. I'm heir to my actions, born of my actions, related through my actions, and have my actions as my arbitrator. Whatever I do, for good or for evil, to that I will fall heir. Okay, so that's what the Buddha says about that. And what's interesting about that is karma follows you like a shadow. What does that really mean? It sounds fatalistic, it sounds deterministic almost, right? Like as if we don't have free will. Follows you like a shadow. Well, what's really that means is that when we create an action, body, speech, or mind, we're creating a responsibility that we take upon ourselves. It's not fatalistic. The future is not defined by is not always 100% defined by what my actions are. It means that through your action, you have created potential. You have planted a seed that can at some point grow. We can't escape responsibility or change the past. Our mental habits will shape our future experience. In other words, you have caused something, you can't outrun it or undo what's been done. But we also say that karmic consequences are not definite or fixed. The Buddha repeatedly rejected determinism. This is one of the teachings that made him unique from all the other teachers that preceded him, which is we believe in free will. Karma is not a cosmic court that hands down mandatory sentences. Karma is conditional, it's dependent on something, it's not mechanical. So a karmic seed, we use the analogy of a seed, planting a seed. The seed only ripens when there's other conditions present. For example, you plant an apple seed, that is an action or a cause. Well, what are the conditions for its growth? Dirt, earth, rain, water, sunshine. What else do you think it needs to grow? Time of year, seasonality, weather, right? Any other conditions that you might need for it to grow? What conditions would happen where it wouldn't grow?
Well, it could use fertilizer also.
Fertilizer, for sure. Okay, good. Any other conditions, or is that all we need? If we have all that, we're good?
Okay, I talk to my plants,
Okay.
but I don't know if that's needed, but
Yeah,
caring
no.
about them, there have actually been experiments that show they respond to
Mhm.
being read to or talked to or in a positive way, not yelled at, but
Great.
in a positive way.
So if we do all that together, including the talking, are we guaranteed that that apple seed is going to grow into an apple tree? It sounds pretty simple to me. Let's just identify all the conditions, put them together, and boom, we're done. So I used to work at the World Trade Center pre 9/11, obviously. And if I brought a plant in, or I brought up a planter, and I said, yeah, I'm going to grow a little apple tree right here, or some flowers or what have you, and I plant the seed. And then the planes come and take World Trade Center down. Obviously, that's not turning into any kind of flower or plant or tree. Meaning there are so many other conditions that can take place that might prevent that from happening. So it's not only what conditions do we need, but what conditions do we not, want to have as well. So it's a very sophisticated, non-linear which is in order for karma to see fruition, we need to have certain conditions around it at the right time, and also many conditions not around it. And these conditions can be strengthened. Let's water this tree a lot of good fertilizer. Can be weakened. Let's not let it see that any light of day, no sun for this tree. Interrupted, neutralized. There could be frost that year. There could be a heavy rainstorm. There could be animals digging up the seed. So there's a lot of things that have to happen so they can affect the consequences of the original cause or karma that was created. That's why we have certain practices that will limit, reduce, weaken, maybe even delete any negative karma that we've caused. We can have dedication of merit, which is sometimes we'll say a prayer or do a meditation, and afterwards we'll say, gee, whatever merit I've accumulated from this, I dedicate that to people who are suffering in the world. Those kinds of practices, meditation in and of itself, mindfulness, all kinds of teachings, all kinds of practices can become conditions that affect that karma and weaken it, dilute it, or even nullify it. So both statements can be true. Karma follows you like a shadow. My actions matter. What I did. Can't undo that. But at the same time, karma can be purified or weakened. Your past does not define you forever. And karma is based upon primarily intention. So whenever we do anything with intention, we create karma. Now, not everything has intention. We think thousands and thousands of thoughts a day. Most of them we don't even remember what they are. But if there's not a lot of intention there, or any intention, then there's no karma associated with that. And if there's, like I mentioned, stepping on a bug without knowing you're doing it, very, very, very light karma. So where is karma stored? And the word stored implies it's something physical, and it's not. It's more like a memory. So where is it stored? It's a type of memory. And Buddhists say that our body is made up of 5 aggregates. There they are. So this is what makes up our body. Form, that's an easy one. It's our physical body, comprises 4 elements of earth, water, fire, and air. Earth, an example of that. This is from an Asian perspective of medicine, as well as something that's been taught that preceded Asian medicine. So the physical body comprises of these 4. So earth, for example, would be bones, body, teeth. Water would be blood, lymph, saliva. Our body's made of fire, heat, digestion, metabolism. Air is our breathing, our circulation. So that's form. That's one aggregate. And these 5 aggregates are always changing. And in fact, the name of this teaching is called 5 aggregates. Why do they call it aggregates? Aggregates, the word skanda in Sanskrit literally means heap or bundle or collection. So the name emphasizes that a person is not a unified, permanent thing, but rather a grouping of different changing components. So form is one of those components. Feeling and sensation is another, which is that basic response to experience. It can be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Perception is the mental process of recognizing, labeling, identifying. That's a dog. That's cold. That's a tree. Mental formations are intentional mental activities like habits, impulses, and emotions, karma, that shape future experience and condition our consciousness. And then the 5th aggregate is consciousness, which has three subsets to it as well. There's three types of consciousness. One is gross consciousness. That's where our sensory awareness is what do we see, hear, smell, touch every day. Subtle consciousness is really experienced when we dream or go into a meditation or during sleep sometimes or the dying process. This does not depend on our ordinary senses that are in the gross consciousness. And the third one is the very subtle consciousness, which acts like that memory bank that where karma, after it is created, it resides. And that very subtle consciousness is not only with us now, but also after we die. Another way of looking at a very subtle consciousness is that moment-to-moment continuity of mental events. That's the deepest level of consciousness in Vajrayana Buddhism, and it's called a very subtle consciousness, moment-to-moment continuity of mental events that continues after death. So karma is a memory without a storyteller because we don't have a permanent self. Now, if you look at just the second, third, fourth, and fifth aggregate, that's considered combined, that's considered our mind stream. Our mind stream, we all have our own independent individual mind stream, and they interact with each other. They're constantly flowing, and we're all interconnected through our mind streams, through the actions of body, speech, and mind. That is how we are all interconnected. I have mind stream, you have yours, but if I talk to you, we're interacting. We can interact through our body, physical body, through talking, as well as through our mind. So from a Buddhist perspective, the only continuity that remains after we die is that very soul consciousness, and it's like a river flowing. It's not a physical thing. It's not located in a body. It's not floating around in space. It exists in its own continuum of experience. It's similar to dreaming in that when dreaming, it's a mind-generated environment. And in the afterlife of the bardo, that very subtle consciousness experiences a mind-generated reality. So what kind of habits reside or ride along in that very subtle consciousness? Any thoughts on that? What kind of habits?
Maybe the habits that we're not even aware we have, deep habits, the ones that we do and we don't know, but maybe our friends know better than we do. You know?
Right. Friends and loved ones know better than, yeah, they see the habits coming long before we do. Can you give me an example?
Well, you talked earlier about, for example, if you in the Bordeaux, you in this life, you're wrought with anxiety or anxiousness. So that might be just such a, a deep automatic state that one person might have. So that would be a very subtle consciousness, maybe like that ribbon, continuum that follows through. It's an anxious way to receive anything that we're going to be experiencing, or the thought stream consciousness will be experiencing.
Good example. Good. Other examples? Anyone?
You brought up earlier, if you are consistently a reactive person, you automatically fire off in anger. It's the automatically thing that makes it a habit. You don't stop and respond to something in a careful or mindful way with awareness. You just react.
Good example. Anyone else?
I was thinking like compassion or loving kindness, that would be a kind of a fundamental thing that you want to live your life doing, and that it would continue.
Yeah, so habits don't have to be bad. Habits can be good. Right, for sure. So habits are when and how we react in response to something. You start thinking about going up in an elevator and you get anxious or angry because you have a fear of heights. Or you're running late to work and you get annoyed because of the traffic. Or you think someone offends you and you get angry and irritated or whatever, or you yell at them, what have you. So here are some examples and this is not a comprehensive list, which would take dozens or hundreds or thousands of pages, which are examples of negative karmic habits. An attachment to oneself as a permanent sense of self. That's a negative habit. That implies that we think that we're always going to be, that our situation or our self is, or our mind is always going to be a certain way. Really refers to our ego. Attachment to permanence. Once again, I think the way my life is now is how it's going to be in 10 minutes, 2 years. Selfishness. If I'm a selfish person, we'll talk about how and why. That's a negative karmic habit. If I'm closed-minded, same thing. If I'm ignorant of my connectedness to other people, other sentient beings around the world, that's an example of a negative karmic habit. And then there's other, greed, fear of heights. These all fall into some of those categories above. Various attachments to money, sex, and power. That has to do with our ego, that sense of self. Also anger, sense of self, fear of intimacy. Same thing, being afraid. Those are just examples. And then the last one, there's getting annoyed when, and then you can just fill it in. In which case the habit has to do with being triggered for your annoyance. So it's a very incomplete list of actions that we take when something comes into our lives that we don't like. Those habits that we have ingrained in us, in our consciousness, we carry those around with us. And they show up in our lives now, today, as we are alive, and when the conditions are in place. So we have several options. We can do nothing about it, just keep living our life, or we can do our best to eliminate them or reduce their power over us. So my question is, Buddhism has the following teachings: teachings of impermanence, teachings of self, teachings of interconnectedness. Interconnectedness. Why does Buddhism have those teachings? What's that all about? Have these teachings about interconnectedness, interrelationship, how our mind states are all connected with each other. We have teachings about why is Buddhism so hyped up about this concept of impermanence? Impermanence means everything changes. Okay, got it. What else do I need to know? Teaching of self, well, I explained that our body changes, our mind changes, our mind stream changes. Okay, we're impermanent. There's no inherent self. Got it. Well, we're all interconnected. Okay, I understand that now, all on an intellectual level. How does ignorance, I guess another way to say it is, how does ignorance of these teachings play out in our lives? Someone who doesn't understand that we're impermanent, someone who doesn't understand, thinks that sense of self, I'm going to be this way, I am this way, this is who I am, I'm not going to change, I can't change, that type of mentality. How does ignorance of these teachings play out in our lives? Well, when we're surprised when things around us change for the worse, some people are like, just like, okay, it's like water off a duck's back. Other people, oh my God, something changed, something happened. It's a really big deal. God forbid someone close to you dies. Obviously, it's a very, very sad situation, but some people, it just shakes them. I never thought that would happen. Or when we think we're more important than others, or when our ego plays a big role, which is usually when you find yourself being defensive. That means you're there to defend what? You defend your ego, or you take actions and thoughts to defend or inflate your ego, or we say, do, and think things to make ourselves feel important. These actions are all based on illusory views of ourselves and the world. So if we walk around with this illusory view that things are permanent, more permanent than we think, I have a self that's very strong and an ego that, opinions that are very close to fact, or I don't understand that my existence and how I am impacts others, then we're living our lives with illusions. When that happens, we create suffering for ourselves and usually others. So when our actions of body, speech, and mind are a reflection of not understanding those teachings of impermanence or our true sense of self, which is always changing, or our interconnectedness, we create our own suffering. So my question is, we all agree we don't want any negative karma. I've got enough negative karma. I don't need any more. So if I don't want any negative karma, what do you recommend that I do throughout the day? How do we know if our actions, karma, will create good or bad karma? What can we ask ourselves before we act, speak, or think?
That's my intention.
So louder, please.
Going
Can you keep
about the day with intention.
going about the day with intention? And, okay, good. That's a great start. Can you be more specific?
Oh, yeah, I guess it would be intention to, well, not create negative karma, but just to not have attachment to, I guess I think about my day, right? Like not have attachment to what exactly, how everything's going to turn out. Like
Great.
I have my things I want to do or accomplish, but there's only so much I can have influence
Good. I like
of.
that. Can you give me a very specific example?
Um, driving to a great relaxing yoga class. And we're all looking forward to getting there and we can't wait and it's gonna smell good and it's gonna feel good. And there's a traffic jam and we're late. I'm late, whatever. So I'm missing out on this amazing experience and everybody else is gonna get to experience and I'm not, and I'm stuck in this dumb traffic jam. How is that specific enough?
Yeah, yeah, good. And as a result of being stuck in that traffic jam, you get
Yeah.
annoyed.
I get annoyed or I get frustrated. I
You get
feel left
triggered.
out.
Could be
Whatever the trigger. Yeah.
annoyed, angry. Exactly. Okay, good. So, and then you can say to yourself, as you start feeling that coming on, you can say to yourself, hey, is this going to create good karma or bad karma? And then you can change accordingly. For example, anyone else have an example? What should I do during the day so that I don't create negative karma for myself?
The only thing that came to my mind is actually, oh my goodness, I think it's just to stay in the moment as much as I possibly can. And that will erase any story that I might come with from what I was doing or what I might be thinking for the future. And I think,
So
yeah,
be
pretty
stay
much.
stay in the moment. Stay in the moment.
Yeah, it's kind of like to be in a blank state, like not even thinking of why I'm going. It's just to stay in a blank state. That's
Okay, so let me give you an example. I'm a really good shot with a gun. And I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go to war. I'm gonna go shoot some people. When I'm there, I'm gonna make sure I'm in the moment. I'm gonna stay in the moment. So is that good karma, bad karma? I'm gonna stay in the I'm gonna be in the moment. In fact, not only that, I'm not gonna have any thoughts, because that's how I'm a good meditator too.
Are you asking me? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, if you're where you're at, you already made that decision, whatever reason. I think if you're already there, you're going to do better in what you're doing if you're fully present in the moment. Like if you already got to that point, then you've already made decisions in the past. So that's how I'm seeing it at this moment. Because if
So,
not, I would have to go back to, oh, when you were 18, you decided to be, in the military, blah, blah. That's kind of, that would be changing the whole story pretty much.
so I'd like to have a test ready to go so I can test myself or ask myself a question before I think, act, or do something so that I know, oh, if I do this, that's negative karma. So I'm not going to do that. So instead of asking ourselves, is this negative karma, positive karma? I don't know. How do I determine that? It's very complicated. It's a very simple question. It is, what is my motivation or intention for, and then fill it in. So what is my motivation or intention to say, do, or think something? To making this phone call, asking this question, treating someone this way, treating myself this way, saying these words. What is my intention? What is my motivation? That's the only question you need to ask. And here's the answer. You check for, is my intention or motivation to do something selfish or selfless? If it's selfish, that's negative karma. Selfishness is inflating the ego. Okay, well, we already have some teachings that say we don't want that. Here's the other thing you can check for. Am I being open-minded or closed-minded? And if the answer is I'm being open-minded, open-mindedness creates positive karma, closed-mindedness creates negative karma. So, an example, I may have given this in one of the books. I'm about to, I'm going to go volunteer. There's a nonprofit here. I'm going to go volunteer. My neighbor volunteers there. And I want to show him, he volunteers there 1 day a week. I'm going to go volunteer 2 days a week. So he knows that, they're twice a day. Yeah, they're more than he is. Nonprofit, I'm helping people. Oh, well, very simple. Is that a positive or negative kind of motivation? I explain, oh, you know what? That's really being very selfish. As opposed to, he's there and he just really wants to help people. Selfless, negative karma, positive karma. Um, so, and selfishness, just so we're clear, I work, I make money, I support my family, I pay my bills. Is that selfish? Selfishness is putting yourself first in a way that ignores or harms others. So you just ask yourself, hey, I'm about to do this thing. I'm about to say these words. I'm having these thoughts. Well, is it selfish, selfless, open-minded, closed-minded? And then you can make the change accordingly. You can either change the action that you're going to do, or you can change your motivation. And you can do that all day long until it becomes very natural. And because you just check yourself and you just kind of know, I'm really doing it for myself. That kind of thing. And it's not about the action itself, it's about the motivation or the intention. Actions meaning body, speech, or mind, based upon ignorance of impermanence, strong sense of self, ignorance of our interconnectedness, synonymous with selfishness, closed-mindedness, or negative karma. Okay. Just one or two more thoughts. Any questions or comments on that? Jump in. Okay, I'll share one or two more thoughts. So when do we experience the results of our karma? Why not immediately? Well, seeds that get planted don't just flower or become a tree. What has to happen? We already know many conditions have to come together, and many conditions have to not come together for it to happen in a certain way. So sometimes results are experienced immediately. I punch you, someone's going to punch me right back. Okay, happens right. Other times people cheat, steal, lie, and they may not get caught for days, weeks, months, years, or at all in this lifetime. Get caught in the sense that we think they should get caught. Their mind state is, people that do a lot of those things is really like they're living in their own house. They're already experiencing the results of their own karma just by living in a hellish state of mind all the time. So why do some bad people seem to have good things happen to them? While good people have bad things happen to them. What's that all about? Where's the karma in those situations, damn it? Well, karma is so complicated that unless we're enlightened or have great realizations, it's very difficult to know why we or someone else finds ourselves in a specific situation. Very hard to know. But that's not the right question to ask. The right question to ask is what do I do now with the situation I have been dealt with? I have free will. My future is not written in stone. My future of my state of mind, my future of my karma. What do I need to do now? That's the real question. Can't change the past. Past is gone. Okay. Anything before we close up shop? Any thoughts, comments, questions on anything?
Well, if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
wouldn't it be like if you're fully in the moment, isn't that what's going to give you the awareness so that you can determine what your intention is?
So, in order to be fully in the moment, every moment,
Mm,
what does that take? Well, got to do a lot of meditation. Because what's meditation really about? It's retraining the mind to be in the present moment. Meditation doesn't have to be sitting on a cushion. It could be gardening. It could be swimming. Any kind of meditation that retrains your mind to be in the present moment. That's part one.
right.
That's what the mindfulness movement is all about, right? Very hip movement now, came 10, 15, 20 years ago, mindfulness movement. But combined with that, that's why Buddhism, that's only one part of Buddhism. There's many other parts of Buddhism which has teachings of compassion, teachings of self, impermanence, etc. So you can be very, very mindful, but still be an a-hole. Still go out shoot people. So we need these other teachings and we need to practice them and understand them and be not only mindful, but we have to be so sensitive to our thoughts, actions, and speech in terms of selfishness, selflessness, open-mindedness, closed-mindedness. It's going to harm someone, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have a chance of, well, we want to talk about enlightenment. There's a different word, liberation or freedom in this lifetime. Freedom to think and have whatever state of mind we want, which right now most of us are out of control. So therefore being in the moment's great, but from a Buddhist perspective, we need other stuff, teachings on ethics, and we have to not just understand them intellectually, but really live them during the day when it's tough, because that person bumped into me or I was on my way to yoga class, that's when the rubber hits the road.
Mm.
Good question. Any thoughts, comments, questions?
So I have a thought. So,
Please.
okay, so we try so hard to be mindful. Someone triggers you, take a deep breath, you let it go, you be mindful about it. Okay, this is just from they're projecting from where they, you know, from whatever space they're in. But then they come back at you again, and then they come back at you again, and over and over and over. And then until that point, you're like, okay, if murder was not a crime, you almost want to kill them. You get to that point, and then you think to yourself, okay, it's really not worth it. I mean, how do I wrap my mind around that? Like, okay, how do I stop myself from not getting triggered? So it's like that's what happened to me today. I was like, okay, maybe it's a good thing I decided to join the class today. It's like, okay, I really needed some mindfulness and some perspective from somebody else. And I'm extremely patient. I'm really very patient until I'm not.
We're all very patient until we're not. Okay, can you give it? I don't need to know the real name of that person, but just make up a name of whoever that person was that just annoyed you.
Benny, for example.
Benny? Benny?
Yeah, it's not even Benny, but anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say the name is John.
Okay.
There's no one online now by the name of John, right? The reason I don't want to use Benny is I have a dog named Benny and I don't want to get him all hyped up.
Okay.
So, John, here's what I would do. I'm going to answer your question in a different way than you expect. You have a meditation practice, right?
I do.
Great.
But I did it this morning, but that's probably why I was so easily like annoyed because I was
Not a problem.
not that it's an excuse, but I tried to like think, okay, maybe I should have meditated more,
Right. So here's what I would do. Next time you meditate, before or after, if you have a little prayer, sometimes a little things that we might say to help our motivation, intention, warm us up for meditation, you can thank John. Say, John, thank you so much for helping me work on my mindfulness and my meditation. Because John is teaching you something. We need people like that. That's the best thing that could have happened to you. Because without John teaching you, you might have had to learn it in a much, much harsher environment. So I would personally be, trying to be funny, even though I am funny. I would absolutely thank John from the deepest place that he existed and came to you in that manner to teach you more about mindfulness and yourself and how we get triggered.
And not to be like him.
And not to be like him. That's a different one. But yeah, I mean, or they interviewed the Dalai Lama, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, and they said, hey, you've had many teachers in your life. Who would you say is the teacher that impacted you the most? And he didn't miss a beat. He said, Chinese government. They're my best teacher.
Yeah.
So, and that's another way that we can, next time John or someone else starts to get on your nerves a little bit, say, hey, this is great. Put a little smile on your face and go, you know what? This is a good thing. It's a good thing. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Okay.
And then you won't get angry and pissed off anymore because you'll realize, hey, this person, this guy, this gal, whoever, they're teaching me something I need to know, which is, hey, don't let this stuff bother me.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Good question. Yeah, I never have that problem personally, so I just good. Any other thoughts, comments, questions on anything? Feel free to jump in. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so this will be posted on YouTube tomorrow. If you miss a class going forward, it'll be posted. And then we have another 4 more sessions with me. And then the 6th session, Lama Lhanang will join us and answer any of your questions. Okay.
Thanks, Mordy. This was
Have a
very
great evening,
insightful.
everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Take care.
Mordy. Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.